Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
Want to teach your kids financial literacy, but not sure where to start? Greenlight can help. With Greenlight, parents can keep an eye on kids' spending and saving, while kids and teens use a card of their own to build money confidence. As a parent, you can send instant money transfers, set up chores, automate allowance, and more. It's a convenient way to run your household, customized to your family's needs, and the easy way to raise financially smart kids. Get started with Greenlight today and get your first month free at greenlight.com/Spotify.
Content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
He smiles wide, barely any teeth left in his mouth. I didn't believe him for a second. He could say whatever he wanted. The look in his eyes made me scared for my life.
The man immediately reached to grab my arm, and I pulled away. My fight or flight immediately kicked in, and I backed away quickly from the couple. I was on the edge of turning and running, but I had nowhere to go.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 3 stories that will have you looking over your shoulder and checking under the bed before you go to sleep. You never know what or who is hiding in the shadows, just out of sight. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First, a story narrated by Daniel DeGroh from Reddit user narrow_designer4653. A close call with a Lyft driver.
When I first moved into my current city, I didn't have a car, so I would walk or ride my bike everywhere. It was a 30-minute bike ride to college and a 20-minute walk to work. I liked taking walks. It helped me clear my head. But as the months got hotter, it became unbearable to walk for even 20 minutes. Besides, I arrived at work all sweaty. I needed a better method of transportation, so I set up a profile on Lyft. For reference, I'm a 19-year-old trans man, so I put in my preferred name and gender as well as a nice selfie. I started using Lyft religiously once I discovered the wait and save option. Most of the time, I wouldn't even have to wait that long. Sometimes it was even shorter than the more expensive options. I was easily taking 10+ Lyft rides a week to get to work and anywhere else I needed to go, so I was well accustomed to using the app and had never encountered anything weird. That is, until my last ride. A couple months ago, I ordered my wait and save Lyft and went outside to wait for it. I was looking at my phone, taking note of my driver's appearance and car. I looked up and saw a car with tinted windows stopped in my driveway. It looked very similar to the little icon in the app. Luckily, I pay attention to small details, so I could see that this wasn't the same car. Plus, the app said my driver was still 2 minutes away. I just assumed he was waiting on someone else. Maybe he was a friend of a neighbor? Or maybe he was looking for directions? Then why was he sitting in my driveway staring at me? I felt awkward, so I grabbed our mail from the mailbox and went around to the back door and brought it into the kitchen. Then I went back outside, and the guy was still there. We made eye contact, and he rolled down his window. Maybe he's just lost. Let me see if I can help him out, I thought. I approached the car, and he said he was my driver. He pulled out his phone, which clearly displayed my Lyft profile. I looked down at my phone again, and the driver pictured in my app was of a completely different age and ethnicity than this man. Now, I don't know why, but for some reason I just trusted him. I've been living as a guy for almost 2 years now, and I pass pretty well, so creepy men have been taken off my radar. I haven't been catcalled, assaulted, or harassed, so I just assumed that I was immune to kidnapping or trafficking. My first thought was that Lyft sent me 2 drivers, and the cars being so similar was just a funny coincidence. I told the guy my theory, and he asked if I wanted to take his car instead. I said, yeah, I guess I will since you're here first. Then my actual driver pulled up. I walked over to him and he rolled down his window. I thought to myself, this is awkward, like seeing your ex on a date. I explained to the second driver what was going on and told him I was going in the other guy's car because he was there first. This driver said I should probably go with whoever was on my phone. I figured this made the most sense, but I was worried that one of the drivers wouldn't be paid or that I would have to pay for both of them. I still figured this was a mistake on Lyft's part. I turned around to go tell the first driver that I was going with the second driver, but before I could, he drove off. Weird, I thought. I guess he wanted to get out of here to catch his next ride. So I got into my assigned driver's car and settled in. After a few moments of driving, he broke the silence and said, "That was really weird, right?" I said, "Yeah, it kind of was. Has that ever happened to you before?" My driver said he'd been working for Lyft for over a decade, and this had never happened before. My heart stopped as the realization dawned on me. Oh my God. That other guy might have been pretending to be my driver on purpose. That sudden fear, which I hadn't felt in 2 years, punched me in the gut all at once. It was the same fear I had experienced before I came out, back when I was living as an attractive young woman. I realized that men go through this shit too. My palms were sweaty, and I quickly changed the subject. We made small talk and joked around a bit as I tried to hide my increasing anxiety and paranoia. Once we arrived at my workplace, I thanked him and tipped him well. He let me know he would share the incident on a forum for fellow drivers, and this made me feel a little better. I walked into work and with shaky hands took one of my emergency anxiety meds. I rushed over to our outdoor break area and called my dad to tell him what happened. He urged me to make a report to Lyft, which I did. When I called Lyft, the representative took it very seriously. She said she'd never seen anything like this before. She asked if I could send any documented proof of the incident, but unfortunately I didn't have any. Nevertheless, she was very kind, and I appreciated her genuine concern. The whole thing was traumatic, especially after I had time alone to reflect and think about everything. I analyzed every detail till my anxiety took full control and made me a total paranoid maniac. The tinted windows, the timing, the similarity between the cars, the fact that no one had ever heard of this happening. If I had gotten in that first car, we would have driven off and my actual driver would have just reported me a no-show. My dad knew I was heading to work, so he wouldn't have expected me to come home for several hours. I did some research, and the conclusion I reached was this was likely a trafficker who had access to Lyft servers and was looking for repeat customers like me. People who are so used to hopping in and out of these cars that they probably have their guard down. In their eyes, I was a young, conventionally attractive male. For the next couple days, my dad drove me to and from work, and then he surprised me with a car of my own, which allowed me to breathe a sigh of relief. If you use any rideshare app, stay safe, read your license plates, and trust your gut. I just happened to be lucky enough to have my real driver pull up at the perfect time. He might have saved my life.
Our next story is told by Brian Jeffords about getting caught during a game of hide and seek, but not by Who's It.
It was the summer of 1978, and my family and I had just moved from Canada to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My dad actually spoke the language there, so when an international business was looking to fill an executive role, he was hired from a pool of North American candidates. As a 7-year-old, I was excited about moving to a new country and the adventures that awaited me. I had no idea that one of my first adventures would be so sinister. We ended up staying at a hotel with a few other expat families while we waited for the company-supplied home to be ready for us. As a second grader, staying in a hotel for a couple of weeks, coupled with the tropical scenery, made me feel like we were on vacation. I had lots of other kids to play with from the other expat families, and I filled my days running around this hotel with my new friends. One of the games we would play was building-wide hide-and-seek. We would all start in the lobby, and whoever was the seeker would start counting as we all dashed to the elevators to disperse around the 30-some floors of the hotel. We had only ever had great experiences with the hotel staff and patrons, and so I suppose I had gained a false sense of security in the building. One game in particular, I decided to take the elevator to the top floor to find a place to hide. As I sprinted out of the opening doors, I nearly barreled into a man and woman as I rounded the corner into the hotel hallway. They seemed to be in their 30s and not among us expats at the hotel. I remember thinking their clothes were very nice, and how surprised I was that someone in such nice clothes could perform the actions they were about to. The man immediately reached to grab my arm, and I pulled away. My fight or flight immediately kicked in, and I backed away quickly from the couple. I was on the edge of turning and running, but I had nowhere to go while I waited for the elevator. I stood there in a standoff with these two for what my child brain felt like 10 minutes of complete silence. Finally breaking the silence, the man pulled a chocolate bar out of his pocket and gestured it towards me. I remember thinking that the chocolate bar had nuts in it, something I hated. There was no way in hell I was approaching them, chocolate bar or no. They stared down at me with these creepy, fake smiles, even as I saw them preparing to leap at me. I prepared myself to run in the opposite direction and scream, hoping someone else on the floor would come to help. Right when it felt like they were going to pounce on me, the elevator doors immediately to my right opened, then someone stepped out and onto the floor. I don't remember anything about them because I flew into the open elevator, smashing the buttons for lobby and door close. The man and woman retreated in the opposite direction, clearly not wanting a witness to their attempted abduction. And I never saw them again in the last few days before we moved into our home. I never told anyone what happened, and happily took the jeers of my friends for immediately losing hide-and-seek. It wasn't until decades later that I ever told anyone what had happened, or almost happened to me. My childhood mind had pushed it to the back. It's sobering to know that the smallest things in life can make all the difference. I don't know who it was who needed to go to the 30th floor that day, but whoever they were, they saved my life. I'm eternally grateful to them for that, and equally disturbed at my would-be abductors. Here's to hoping they met a sad and tragic end before they could endanger any other 7-year-old boys.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year. And plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our final story is narrated by Terra Ashe from r/Let's Not Meet. Next time, think twice before dismissing the creaks you hear in the house at night.
I've tried to put the story into words so many times before, but I always get lost in the details. There are a lot of them. I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. This is maybe the single strangest thing that has ever happened to me. In 2015, I was 19 and I had a summer job at a vacation Bible camp for inner city kids. I live in a big city. All the issues that big cities have were a part of life for me. I was told that this neighborhood was in the process of being gentrified. They had even just opened up a hipster coffee shop/dog park right down the street. It wasn't my side of town, so I guess I just took that opinion on its face. The neighborhood was strange. To be fair, half dilapidated houses with trash out in the front, and across the street were beautiful townhouses with immaculate yards and square modern architecture. The Bible camp where I was working was essentially just a big 2-story house with a large fenced-in yard. Again, we were assured that we were safe. There were bars on the windows, and the outer doors locked automatically when they shut. The camp was conducted in the homes downstairs, and the summer counselors, there were 4 of us, lived in a small upstairs apartment that was off-limits during the day to the kids. There were a couple other counselors who lived around town. Our camp ran 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and then time was ours to explore the city or rest or whatever. I remember it was Saturday evening in July, and all 6 of us were hanging out at the apartment cooking a spaghetti dinner. We had our own food stipends and pantry as opposed to the camp's fridge and pantry. Each of us counselors didn't take any chances and scribbled our names all over everything that was ours. My best friend Chris was also a counselor, and she and I were cooking for the other counselors. It was time to make the meatballs, so I went into the staff fridge to get the ground beef and noticed that my fresh pack of Go-Gurts were gone. I closed the fridge and walked to the dining room and yelled at everyone else, "Who stole all my Go-Gurts?" Everyone looked at me wide-eyed and blankly back and forth at each other. I figured it was one of the counselor's friends who was hanging out that night, so I just sucked it up and said, "Whatever, just please don't eat anything if it has someone's name on it." Chris and I headed back to the kitchen to get back to cooking. After dinner, the other 2 resident counselors started doing the dishes for us, so Chris and I headed into the living room to get comfy and watch TV. We've only barely turned it on when that counselor's friend, Sarah, came in to tell us that she couldn't find her phone or wallet. I paused the show and rolled my eyes at Chris, still annoyed about the Go-Gurts. Chris asks, "Where did you last have them?" She says she left them on the couch before dinner. We all start looking around, turning over the cushions, etc. After 10 or so minutes of searching, Sarah heads downstairs to look around some more. Chris and I didn't want to get interrupted again, so we decided to go into our shared bedroom to resume watching our show. We both sit on the bottom bunk, and I proceed to start venting about Sarah, who I felt like was ruining the evening. Our door is cracked open, and I notice a hand slowly sneak in while we're talking. "Hey, did you find them?" I ask, assuming it's Sarah. The second I spoke up, the hand darted out of the frame, and there was no response. Chris and I exchanged glances of confusion, and we ran out into the living room and yelled for everyone to come in. We hear one of the counselors yell, "We're all downstairs looking for Sarah's phone." That sent shivers down my spine. Who was up here with Chris and I alone? We sprint down the stairs and find everyone around Sarah, who is upset and tearing up. Her friend, the camp counselor, says, "Come on, guys, did you take her stuff?" Chris and I say it wasn't us, and Sarah screams through her tears that obviously someone took them and they should just come clean. I decided to cut the tension and ask about the hand. Everyone stares at me blankly before getting wide-eyed as they come to the realization that I did. Someone was in the house with us. In a panic, we all sprint through the house, searching high and low for this possible intruder. Someone called the camp director to come help, and by the time he arrives, we've all come back from searching and have huddled together in the foyer. He calls the police, and they come to take our statements and make a stolen property report, which I guess makes Sarah feel better. Still, they didn't find anyone after a half-hearted search and seemed to suspect that we were making the whole thing up. After an hour or so, the police, the director, and the 2 other counselors and Sarah all left for the night. We all spent the night together in the living room, easing our anxious brains by joking that the phone and wallet will turn up somewhere random and we'll all laugh about it then. Fast forward a few days and the adrenaline has definitely worn off from that night. We still haven't found any of Sarah's things, but nothing else strange has happened in the house. It's the evening and the 4 of us are getting cleaned up before bed. We finish cleaning up outside, lock the gate, and head in the dining room door. We're all hungry, and Chris heads to the kitchen to get snacks. She finds the door to the backyard wide open. Again, I feel the sense of unease that something was wrong, but I push it down. I respond, "One of the kids must have left it open," in an effort to dismiss it. Chris shuts and locks the door before turning to notice the fridge is cracked open. We all pause when she tells us, and after a moment, I say, "Oh no, y'all, he's back." We all laugh with relief. Chris grabs a broom, holding it like a baseball bat, and yells, "Let's get him, girls!" Adding to the joke. She starts throwing open the doors around the kitchen, yelling, "We know you're in here, show yourself!" And following behind her, laughing at her exaggerated gesture, but slowly that sense of unease creeps over me. I can tell she's nervous too, even if she's trying to play it off. She continues her charade into the next room, throwing open 2 closet doors at once. "We know you're..." She starts before looking into a closet and freezing in her tracks. Her eyes wide, she lets out a loose scream so loud that my hairs all stood on end. She chucks the broom into the open closet and sprints past me, back into the living room and out the door into the backyard. I see her in the window, booking it down the sidewalk. I turn slowly, afraid to acknowledge that she's not playing some sick joke. My heart is pounding in my ears as I watch the closet door close slowly, revealing an older, dirty-looking man standing in the hallway. I completely froze. He smiles wide, barely any teeth left in his mouth. He holds up his hands and says, "I didn't mean no harm." while slowly backing away towards the front door. I didn't believe him for a second. He could say whatever he wanted. The look in his eyes made me scared for my life. I managed the courage to squeak out, "You can't just leave." His smile disappears and he restates, "I didn't mean no harm." He fully turns and runs through the house. As I round the corner to the foyer, all I find is the front door wide open and the man completely gone. I fumble in my pocket for my phone before dialing 911 and running out into the sidewalk to look for him. He was nowhere to be seen. The next few hours were a blur. It felt as if we were crazy, having convinced ourselves earlier that week that we were just imagining things, that the house was fine and we were safe. No more. The camp director apologized profusely, and one of the police who had visited the other night came by to say the same. I was okay, shaken up, but I decided to finish out the summer job. Chris, on the other hand, is still really traumatized from the events of that night. She says that when she opened the closet, he was just staring at her with a blank stare and that same wide smile. She said it was like he was waiting for her to find him and that his face still haunts her sometimes. We're still friends to this day, but I can't bring up that summer unless she has a few beers in. I myself sit up at night and worry myself into a knot about it sometimes. How long had he been in the house with us? What if Chris hadn't been in the bedroom with me that night when he stuck his hand through the doorway? What was the hiding place he found on spaghetti night? I just imagine him lying on the floor under Chris and I's bunk bed, listening to us talk, watching us get dressed in the morning. I know I'll never get the answers I feel like I need, but at least we all got through it safe and sound. To the creepy, grinning squatter who lived in the vacation Bible school house, for the love of God, let's not meet again.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producers are Noah Fouts and Elizabeth Flood. Our audio engineer is Nathan Corson. Executive producers Bridget Coyne and Gerardo Orlando. Until next time, stay safe out there.
Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken expert since 1990. Taco expert since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.